Dobrze, zaczynamy w takim razie ostatni wykład. Bardzo dziękujemy obecnym osobom za wytrwałość. Za nami właśnie wykład dr Holly, który był naprawdę fascynujący. Można by go jeszcze bardzo długo słuchać, ale przed nami równie fascynująca część. Zanim przedstawię naszą prelegentkę, chciałabym jeszcze raz się przedstawić dla osób, które mogą oglądać później wykład. Nazywam się Katarzyna Żółtak, jestem częścią TPWS-u, jestem psycholożką, seksuolożką, certyfikowaną sex coach, pracuję online z osobami indywidualnymi, z parami, zwłaszcza z kobietami i z osobami ze społeczności LGBTQ. To, co zapomniałam dopowiedzieć wcześniej, to też to, że oprócz swojej praktyki pracuję także w dziale zdrowia seksualnego w Birmingham LGBT. I chciałam jeszcze właśnie, zanim przedstawię naszą prelegentkę Nikol, chciałam jeszcze raz podziękować bardzo, bardzo mocno naszym głównym sponsorkom Luli Pink. Julia już troszkę wcześniej mówiła o Luli. Lula jest queerowym sex shopem również, który naprawdę oferuje wspaniałe wsparcie, jeśli chodzi o wybory gadżetów, ale też ma niesamowitego bloga pełnego bardzo dużej ilości wiedzy, która się przydaje osobom zainteresowanym gadżetami, które jeszcze gadżetów nie używały, ale także może się przydać ten blog osobom, które już siedzą w branży seksologicznej długo. Ja też, tak jak Julia, często korzystam z bloga Luli. I właśnie jeszcze dzięki Luli mamy dla Was 10% zniżki na produkty Luli z hasłem Horyzonty. Jest to 10% zniżki do końca listopada. I teraz właśnie chcę przedstawić Nikol. Nikol Dekazou jest certyfikowaną seksuolożką, sex coachką i terapeutką Sensate Focus. I właśnie o Sensate Focus, ale także o terapii z zastępczą osobą partnerską dzisiaj Nikol nam opowie. Ja chcę też zdradzić, że już tak naprawdę miałam trochę personalny wykład u Nikol, jeśli chodzi o ten temat, ponieważ sama byłam bardzo zainteresowana tematem. Razem z Nikol byłyśmy na tych samych studiach, więc miałam szczęście dowiedzieć się trochę już na temat właśnie Sensate Focus, ale też terapii zastępczą osobą partnerską i dlatego bardzo się cieszę, że Nikol dzisiaj jest z nami i też podzieli się tą wiedzą i że będzie też przestrzeń na pytania. Także Nikol, oddaję Ci głos.
Hi. My name is Nicole. So I just wanted to check in on the tech part so I can go ahead and share my screen. Okay. And can you hear me okay? Yes. I'll just put it here. This one. Mhm. I just want to double check if it's working. Did you see that I changed it? Yes? Okay, great. So here we go. So hello, my name is Nikol Dekazou, and I wanted to thank TPWS for inviting me here today. It is such an honor. Delighted to have the opportunity to share the wonders, the beauty, the power of surrogate partner therapy and the Sensate Focus from which it was derived. I am in Austin, Texas, and I have been working with Dr. Susan Kaye, who is one of the leaders in the field of surrogate partner therapy. She worked directly inside of the research labs when it was being developed. So I've been with her for 5 years now. So my role in my personal practice and also in the practice in my work with Dr. Kaye at International Mind-Body Therapies, IMBT, is really to ensure that the core of the surrogate partner therapy, Sensate Focus, the touch work itself, is upheld and preserved with authenticity and professionalism. And also some of my goals are to really expand this work to fit in for new client types. It is largely used for male clients at the moment, and I would love to see more neurodivergent clients being included in here, those within the gender spectrum, and etc. So I believe Kate already introduced this, but I did not understand 100%. So I am a board certified sexologist and a certified sex coach, and I'm also a certified surrogate partner therapist. I work both as surrogate partner therapist and also as a clinical sexologist or talk coach who works with a therapist. So I'm in both roles. As of this year, it's my first year doing the talk portion, which has been very exciting. So moving forward, here's the first slide. We'll be talking about surrogate partner therapy, and I just want to add that I put butterflies around on different slides to match the theme of this conference. So, oops, let's go. Okay, so the structure of the lecture is we'll first be just having a look at the overview of what is surrogate partner therapy, what is surrogate partner therapy not, and what is Sensate Focus. I'll then talk a bit about today's touch-starved society. And then I'll give a little bit more information on surrogate partner therapy in today's modern world. So what is, also a disclaimer, SPT is short for surrogate partner therapy. So what is SPT? The most common misconception is that it's prostitution. And is it prostitution? No. Is it sex work? Sometimes, but not often. So about less than 15% of the time with clients involves any activities that could be considered sexual. It is primarily touch-based work, communication-based work, and a lot of work around boundaries and communication skills and socialization. So lastly, is it a body-based therapy that teaches intimacy and communication skills? Absolutely. I think it's really important to address this misconception because for myself, when I first came to my mentor, Dr. Susan Kaye, I could not find much information on the internet about what surrogate partner therapy was. And I was actually a little bit scared because I was like, I don't want to become a sex worker. You know, I want to work with trauma and guide towards sex therapy. And with time, I was able to learn what it was, and I hope to find more resources that explain it better, but we are getting there. So again, I mentioned briefly, but it's important to realize the two main focuses of surrogate partner therapy are the client's relationship to touch and the client's socialization skills. That one is huge because we get a lot of people who are just lacking socialization skills and are able to learn them pretty quickly. So how does surrogate partner therapy work in its approach? So I'll be saying a little bit more. It works within a triadic model. So you see there's a triangle. And we have a client, we have a therapist, or more modernly, clinical sexologists and sex coaches are being involved when it is appropriate for the client's needs. And then we have the certified surrogate partner therapist. As an overview, surrogate partner therapy helps people to overcome intimacy-related challenges through a combination of traditional talk therapy / coaching alongside the experiential learning sessions with the surrogate partner therapist, which would be some sensate focus exercises, touch exercises. There are games that are played to teach boundaries, to learn how to say no, to learn how to ask for what you want or what kind of touch you are comfortable with. And the most typical reason for seeking out or being involved with surrogate or being referred to surrogate partner therapy would be to address issues like severe social anxiety, fear of intimacy itself, trauma recovery, and quite often a lack of relationship experience or a pattern of relationships that have not been serving the client. So a few more of the common reasons would be severe social anxiety, fear of intimacy, recovery from trauma, quite often, and this is well known from the film The Sessions, if any of you have seen it, the physical disabilities which are affecting relationships, sexual function concerns, body image issues, and again, communication difficulties. So now we're moving on to kind of discuss sensate focus. It's important to remember that sensate focus is the core of surrogate partner therapy work. It is a sequence of touch exercises that were developed in the research labs of Masters and Johnson, which I did mention my mentor was an intern there and learned directly from them. So sensate focus typically begins with the hands, and it's a matter of really, getting in touch with those feelings. The inside of the hands have the same amount of nerve endings as the penis. So it's pretty crazy. And it's like, how do we wake up the hands? That's kind of the goal. And then again, sensate focus was originally developed as a means to heal sexual and sensual difficulties or distress, not problems. And SPT was born from this research. So for the people who did not have a partner to practice sensate focus with, they were assigned a surrogate partner therapist to be their partner, to guide them through these exercises and to teach them what it's like to have a healthy relationship to touch, communication, and just an open heart really with somebody else to open and be. So here's what Sensate Focus promotes. We have skill development, learning to recognize personal touch boundaries, understanding nonverbal cues and body language, developing touch confidence in social settings, building communication skills about touch preferences, practice with casual social touch, handshakes, hugs. You wouldn't believe how many of our clients, we give them the home assignments to start hugging their friends, to pay attention if they hug longer. How does that feel? And the same thing with handshakes, maybe going to get a pedicure to have your feet touched more and to feel comfortable with that. And then learning to receive and give appropriate touch. Healing aspects. Addressing touch-related trauma or anxiety, rewiring negative associations with touch, building trust. That is a really big one. Building trust and physical connections. Developing healthy attachment patterns, processing past experiences that might have been negative, and creating new positive experiences that really live inside our body and we carry forward, because there's a lot of wisdom in the body, there's a lot of memory in the body, and that's what we're working with here. Oops. And again, the social integration, boundaries, all of these things. So now we'll discuss a little bit this idea of touch starvation in society. I can say I am half Greek, half American, and the difference of touch culture within the Mediterranean versus the United States or Western Europe is outrageous. My My cousins in the United States, my male cousins, you know, they hardly give me a hug. My male cousins in Greece have their arms around me, they're kissing my forehead, you know, and that's a big part of why I've been so interested in this, kind of being within those two opposite touch cultures. And touch is, or healthy touch at least, it's a fundamental human need. So important for our health. And in our digital age and all of that, it's becoming increasingly scarce. And we need this work more than ever. So again, we're challenging this concept that touch equals sex. At least here in the United States, you know, it's pretty much illegal to touch people except for on the shoulder in most situations. And again, that grew even worse now that we're all on Zoom and all of that. But we have a lot of hope. And one thing Dr. Kaye always says is everybody needs this work. You know, it'd be so beneficial for everyone to just run through these exercises, develop that connection to touch. And it really is a societal trauma all over. So really, we're just always challenging that concept. Like you being touched, you getting a massage does not mean sex is coming next, you know, and that's how we want to get people more comfortable with touch is by challenging that idea and delineating it. So some of the reasons we need touch, you know, it's a primary tool for our emotional connection and bonding. We are mammals. We are built to receive and give touch. It's a natural stress reliever, anxiety reducer, crucial element in early childhood development. That is something we see a lot of. It's like the first questions we were like, what was your life like as a baby, as a small child? Were you held much? All these things are really important in helping us to distinguish the right progression for clients. A key factor in maintaining health, touch is useful as a way to combat loneliness in an increasingly isolated society. It's just a vital component of being human, of healing, of having good health, of feeling well, you know, emotionally and physically. And we just love to promote that, you know, friends hugging each other more and holding hands, lovers holding hands, just family members holding hands, all of that. So I want to discuss a little bit, mention them a couple of times, Masters and Johnsons, who were I'm sure many of you are familiar with Masters and Johnsons, some of the original sex researchers. And one of the most exciting, pivotal discoveries they made, aside from the sexual response cycle, was this idea that there is no such thing as a sexual problem. There are only sexual difficulties, and those can be effectively treated with behavioral therapy, which is from which the Sensate Focus was born. And then just a little bit more on their research and what they found is the book, Human Sexual Inadequacy, you know, it really is a groundbreaking synopsis and it documents their research, treatment approaches to various sexual difficulties. And notably, it's where, keep saying it, Sensate Focus Therapy was developed. So their research findings were based on direct observation of the human sexual response within the laboratory. They documented a lot of physiological changes during that activity, which helped them figure out the response, and the four-phase model, which many of us are familiar with. So the book also goes into treatment methods where they introduce Sensate Focus, which was developed for couple therapy alongside other techniques. And a lot of this, which was interesting, was emphasizing the reduction of anxiety. It's a huge part alongside the communication skills which are in parallel with the socialization skills. So their work was essentially very revolutionary for treating all of these issues that are physiological rather than purely psychological. Before their research, it was like, it's in your head, it's you. And they're like, no, sometimes this might be your body. This might be your body that needs to wake up your hands, wake up your skin, release that trauma from inside of you. And then they did develop a lot of specific protocols for different sexual concerns, which was really exciting and made it a little more scientific. So within the triadic model, I mentioned a little bit at the beginning, the triangle. This is the traditional model developed in the 70s. So here we have all three of these people working together. You have the client, you have the surrogate partner therapist, and you have the talk therapist. So we'll get a little bit more into this, but this is the original model of who is involved. And so I'll speak a little about Dr. Susan Kaye, who's my mentor. And what she did with her research was she expanded the triadic model. She applied these concepts of neck up practitioner and neck down practitioner. I will show you on the next slide. So here's what was added in. Again, at the top of the model is the client. Everything is always centered around the client. We have surrogate partner therapy here, and then we have the therapist. Now, some things that were added in more modernly were maybe the client doesn't really need surrogate partner therapy so much. Maybe they need to go to a yoga teacher for private instruction to really get in touch with that embodiment, or maybe they need to go to a hairdresser to learn to feel better inside themselves. It might be that they have some sessions with the surrogate and then they get sent out other places, that this is all just part of the body. I like to think of it a little bit like the show Queer Eye, where they go in and look at all the different aspects to help these people like awaken and become ready for their new relationships, their new selves, their new sense of confidence and connection to the world around them, and ideally to connection to themselves. So then on the other edge, we have the therapist, which now sometimes, there weren't clinical sexologists or sex coaches when the original model was developed. So you can see a clinical sexologist rather than a therapist, or a counselor. And that depends on the needs of the client. If the client has already been through therapy, if the client is not walking with severe trauma and they're ready to just kind of move forward, then they're able to work with a clinical sexologist or perhaps a counselor. In all of these situations, in the original triadic model and the expanded, anyone who's working with the client obviously needs to be trained to work within the triadic model. Now, what does that mean? What are the roles inside of the triangle? So I wrote the therapist, but this can mean anything who is neck up. So the therapist is providing neck up support to the client. He or she or they oversees and guides the entire process. And the main obligation of the neck up practitioner is to uphold the triadic model and the roots that were brought to us by Masters and Johnsons. The therapist shares notes with the surrogate partner therapist. Now, the surrogate partner therapist is providing all the touchdown work and, of course, adhering to high ethical standards, and the surrogate partner therapist shares notes with the therapist. Now, the client has to agree to and consent to the note sharing, and the client is always referred to work with a surrogate after a sexual history intake that is conducted by the neck up practitioner. And the client is also required to commit to doing the work, to putting in the effort outside of sessions and doing homework assignments. Sometimes a homework assignment might be go buy lingerie in the lingerie store, or I mentioned earlier, start hugging people. It's always very personalized to the client. So if there's one thing to always remember, or that you take away from this, is to remember that within surrogate partner therapy and even within Sensate Focus, there is a model of steps to take, but it's very necessary to remember that each client is a snowflake, a fingerprint. And the role of the practitioners is to work together and formulate a structured progression that suits the client's unique goals and needs. So sometimes they might get stuck on the hand for a long time because they haven't felt that spark. They haven't been like, wow, and you wait for that spark, and sometimes they get stuck there, so you move somewhere else and you come back, but it's always got to be personalized. And here is Dr. Susan Kaye. I wanted to give her a page, and some of her main words of wisdom is she's like always focused. She calls it the you with you. So it's like always promoting that relationship with the self. And I'd also like to add that touch is the only of the 5 senses that heightens with age. So that's always a really fun piece of information. And we always tell our clients as well, you know what? The genitals are only 10% of your sexual experience. The rest of it is your skin, your mind. And that's how we explain to them, this is why we're focusing on your body, on your relationship to yourself, on your relationship to touch. That's what sex is about, not just your genitals. And to wrap up, I'll speak briefly about some of the associations and regulations, or lack thereof, surrounding surrogate partner therapy. And I have this term here, navigating the Wild West. In the United States, we call things the Wild West to refer to early days when the western part of our country was discovered and everyone was just shooting each other and raping each other and killing each other and stealing their land, which means there were no laws really that were in place. So when I say the Wild West, I just mean this, this thing where there aren't licenses, there's only certifications. But there are some associations like IPSA, which is the International Professional Surrogacy Association. Of course, there is ASECT. ASECT has been interesting, the American Association of Sexuality Educators, Therapists, Counselors, Therapists. They have gone back and forth on whether or not they're comfortable allowing touch within the association. So the thing is, surrogate partner therapy has had a difficult time being legal or illegal. It's currently legal in California, and it is a gray area everywhere else. I put here pre-AIDS versus post-AIDS to explain, like, my mentor, Dr. Kaye, was saying, up until the 80s, when the AIDS scare came, surrogate partner therapy was covered by health insurance. After that, no more. And it really has not made its comeback yet to where it can be covered by health insurance. And that would be a great goal, but we're not quite there, especially with this past election. So it really is up to a lot of us within this realm of sexuality to understand what it is and keep it alive. I wanted to mention the emergence of platonic surrogate therapy, which I think is really exciting because this is offering a lot of these basic elements of getting in touch with touch for people. So when they say platonic, it's like people are always wearing their clothes the entire time. Nothing is based towards sexuality. And this is something that essentially could be practiced by friends, and I'm a big supporter of this. And it's always worth mentioning that there are surrogate partner therapy programs out there, and this is why I was talking about the Wild West, that are promising clients you'll be fixed in 6 sessions. And as I highlighted before, it's very important to remember each client is a snowflake. You cannot promise they're going to be I don't even like the word fix, but you cannot promise they're going to be healed. They're going to be done with their progression in 6 sessions. And so those are some of the programs we do not promote. And there also are people out there calling themselves surrogates who are not trained to do so and who sometimes are not even working with a neck-up practitioner. And that's why it is a bit like the Wild West right now. So that concludes. I'm right past my 30 minutes. So if you are at all interested to learn more just about being trained with IMBT or just to learn about it, please feel free to contact me. Have my email address here, my personal clinic, the Eros Evolution Clinic, and also the IMBT International, where I'm working with Dr. Susan Kaye. We're always excited to talk to people. We want this work to live on, and we want everyone to know as much as they wish to about it. And I have some resources here. So as far as the resources and all that, we will send those out afterwards. And I've also made a second slideshow presentation that I did my best to translate into Polish with ChatGPT, and Kate is going to edit that, and we will send that to you. So thank you again for having me. It's been so exciting, and oops, my mouse is not working, so I will stop the share. There we go. And now if anyone has questions, I am here.
Dziękujemy bardzo, Nikol. I jest już pierwsze pytanie na czacie. W jaki sposób ustalane są granice dotyku? Czy... Oczywiście. Mm.
Oh, I just saw the message. It says, please tune to the English channel. How do I do that?
Dobrze, dobrze. Nicole, so in the settings at the bottom of the screen, there are like 3 dots, and when you click on them, there should be something like translation or
Says
language
interpretation.
options.
Oh, here we go. Okay, I saw it earlier and not turned off. Sorry about that.
Thank you.
Okay.
It's all right. Dobrze, czy już wszystko w
Yes.
porządku?
Okay, thank you.
Dobrze, dziękuję. Więc jest już pierwsze pytanie. W jaki sposób ustalane są granice dotyku? Czy każda zastępcza osoba partnerska ma je zindywidualizowane i przekazuje osobie klienckiej na początku współpracy te granice, czy jest to jakoś bardziej uniwersalne?
Oh, that's a great question. Boundaries. I would say each surrogate partner does have their own boundaries that they communicate with the clients. They each also have their own boundaries of how far they're willing to go. I personally have never done anything to do with the genitals or sex because that did not feel right to me. I have many clients who are very happy to do that and have done so with a lot of ethical standards around their touch. But there is that initial conversation that's had And within each exercise, there actually is the opportunity to offer the touch boundary with each piece of the session that you're doing. So that is something that is constantly upheld.
Dziękujemy bardzo. I kolejne pytanie. Co jeśli para widzi potrzebę tego rodzaju treningu? Jaki oferuje ten rodzaj terapii? Czy wtedy seksuolog pracuje z parą, czy jakoś inaczej to wygląda?
That would depend on if the sexologist is also trained as a surrogate partner therapist, which is sometimes the case. But a couple is able to receive the same type of sessions, treatment, and planning as an individual client. Again, it really depends, but sometimes the surrogates will lead the couple through an initial few sessions, and then a sexologist can help guide them through each piece that they need. I hope that answers the question.
Dzięki, Nikol. Zachęcamy jeszcze dalej do zadawania pytań. Ja w międzyczasie mam swoje, które już kiedyś Nikol zadałam i dostałam już na nie odpowiedź, więc Nikol już będzie też wiedzieć może czego się spodziewać. Moje pytanie jest takie, czy jeśli osoba jest wykwalifikowana do pracy w tej triadzie jako zastępcza osoba partnerska i jako na przykład terapeuta, terapeutka, to czy może pracować z jedną osobą, jakby, no jako w zasadzie te dwie części tego trójkąta? Czy raczej to nie jest uniwersalne, czy tak
No,
można robić? No właśnie, dziękuję.
absolutely not. Yeah. That's one thing we like to, and great question. That's one thing we like to promote against, because there are some people who are trying to do both. And the real power of surrogate partner therapy is to disconnect your neck up with your neck down. In surrogate partner therapy sessions, a lot of times, they might be doing a touch exercise and a client will have a memory. There's been situations like someone had a memory of something very traumatic that happened as a child that they had completely blocked out. And when they mention that in the surrogate partner therapy space, it's required of the surrogate partner therapist to hold space for them, acknowledge that pain, and be there to experience it with them. But their obligation is to say, I'm here for you, but I'm going to send these notes to your therapist so you can speak about it with them. And that way, the client is not associating this intimacy with therapy of the mind. That way, they're really getting to heal inside of their body. And that's the main reason that we have a neck up, a neck down, and the client, and neck up and neck down sharing notes really creates a space for healing of a holistic and mind-body situation. So.
Dzięki bardzo za tę odpowiedź, Nicole. Właśnie to było coś, nad czym ja się zastanawiałam i też podejrzewałam, że taka jest odpowiedź, ale wydaje mi się, że bardzo jest to zawsze przydatne, jak to wybrzmi. I mamy też jeszcze jedno pytanie. Czy osoby, które chcą pracować jako zastępcza osoba partnerska, są w jakiś sposób ewaluowane przed rozpoczęciem szkolenia? Na przykład pod kątem własnych traum seksualnych, które mogły doświadczyć te osoby? I drugie połączone z tym pytanie, jakie cechy albo predyspozycje powinna mieć Twoim zdaniem osoba, która rozpoczyna takie szkolenie?
Okay, very good question. Firstly, yes, there are, you have to do an application and share why you're interested in the work, and it is good to touch on trauma. Now, like with a lot of things, we notice that a lot of people who choose to become surrogate partner therapists are there because they need to heal a bit too, or because they know what it felt like to be in a situation where you need that empowerment. Trying to wrap my head around here. So as far as regulations, so some of the things that can work with that is it is something that is tricky. Choosing the right people to do this work, and sometimes it does turn out that it's like, oh, I'm no longer, I've had other surrogates as I'm working neck up that I decided not to work with because something didn't feel right. Maybe weren't maintaining boundaries. And unfortunately, that does happen. And you can't always know from the beginning just by evaluating their traumas. But when it comes to understanding the past of the surrogate, knowing where they are can help them, can help those who are training them and help them find for themselves where are their boundaries. I mentioned that I never went anywhere with genitals because of my personal history that didn't suit me. And for some others, it does. And if you wouldn't mind, I am neurodivergent and I cannot remember the second part of the question. If you would please repeat that. Thank you.
Oczywiście. To druga część pytania jest taka, jakie cechy albo predyspozycje powinna mieć Twoim zdaniem osoba, która rozpoczyna takie szkolenie na bycie osobą partnerską, zastępczą osobą?
Okay. Yes. One thing Dr. Susan Kaye always does, and she says, you have that thing I can't teach. She can usually tell within 5 minutes. And I'm like, oh, I'm still working on my ability to catch that. But the traits we notice, very highly empathic people, people who've, a lot of times we get polyamorous people who have that, really share that ability to share. Often you're finding people who have pretty healthy attachment systems. And it's really that empathy, having your heart there, having this like connection to breath or this passion for it. And I would say mostly just being able to hold space for someone. That's what we're always looking for. Like, can this person hold space? And is this person here for the right reasons? And it is unfortunately not something we can say 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah, you're in. It is a matter of just sort of having just a sense for it. I wish I had a better answer, but I'm still trying to understand that myself.
Dziękujemy, Nicole. Jeszcze jedno pytanie. Jakie jest ryzyko, że osoba kliencka rozwinie romantyczne uczucia do zastępczej osoby partnerskiej? I jaka jest procedura w takiej sytuacji? To jest pierwsza część. I druga, którą
Yes.
też później Ci mogę powiedzieć, czy wejście w taką relację
Thank you.
terapeutyczną
Thank you.
w
Yeah,
pewien
okay.
Okej, dobrze, to
That's a
zacznijmy
great
od pierwszej
question.
części.
A lot of times the clients do fall in love because they really are experiencing a partner. They are experiencing that sense of love. And the protocol for that is always reminding them, I'm here with you, but this will come to an end. And we have like it's like your graduation, your ritual, and it's also a practice of saying goodbye in a healthy way to a relationship, which they're likely to experience in their lives. It is not allowed for after someone is graduated, it is not allowed for the client to see the surrogate again for a 2-year period. Oftentimes, they won't come back for anything. But like Dr. Kaye got invited to loads of weddings of people she had worked with a couple years later, for example. So we like to have a little bit of space in case they want to come back in 2 years and be like, look at I found it. I did what I wanted. I reached my goals. Um, so yeah, that is a piece of it. That is a piece of it. And again, it's really about teaching them how to say goodbye in a healthy way, and not end up being like, oh, let me get back with my ex again, if they know they want to end. And that's a really great skill that they learn as well. And also it is up to the neck up practitioner to say, bam, you're ready to finish. We're going to have to stop you here. And they're still able to get some neck up work to help them process that ending. That's a very important part, is that they get to talk to their neck up team member as they let go. And there's a
Dzięki,
second part.
Nikol. Tak, jest druga część. Czy wejście w taką relację terapeutyczną w pewien sposób nie wspiera skłonności do unikania prawdziwych relacji? To jest druga część pytania.
Oh, that's a good question. That's not something that I have ever seen or that we've come into. And I think the best way to do that is to graduate the client, because definitely, and that's why we say you can no longer see the surrogate once you have developed some of these skills and we see you're ready to get out there. Because absolutely, if they continue to come back for this sort of touch because it's easier, they don't have that space to get out there and start dating or what have you.
Dobrze, dziękujemy bardzo. W takim razie to było ostatnie pytanie i dziękujemy wszystkim za zaangażowanie i za zadawanie pytań, Nikol. Nikoli, tobie za twój czas, tą wiedzę, którą się z nami podzieliłaś i też, tak jak Nikol mówiła, będziemy mieć dla was slajdy od Nikol, nie tylko w języku angielskim, ale także w języku polskim, którymi się właśnie podzielimy już po zakończeniu konferencji. Także jeszcze raz bardzo, bardzo dziękujemy, Nikol.
Okay, thank you so much for having me. And I'm sure you're all tired after many, many hours. So have a great sleep tonight, and thank you. And feel free to reach out with any questions. Myself and Dr. Kaye are here.
W takim razie dziękujemy za waszą obecność podczas całej konferencji. Było to wiele godzin, wiele wiedzy i właśnie bardzo, bardzo chciałabym podziękować naszym wspaniałym tłumaczkom za ich pracę. I też właśnie jeszcze raz ogromne podziękowania dla naszych sponsorów, głównym sponsorkom Luli Pink, sponsorom N69, też Kinky Winky, Uczę się Act i właśnie też tak naprawdę to wielkie podziękowania są dla wszystkich osób, które też nam postawiły wirtualną kawkę, ponieważ dzięki właśnie wam jesteśmy w stanie ufundować to tłumaczenie i dotrzeć do bardziej szerokiego grona osób. Dziękujemy. I tak, nagrania z konferencji będą dostępne na naszym kanale na YouTubie. Dla osób obecnych na Zoomie i zainteresowanych otrzymaniem certyfikatu. Jest to możliwe, tak jak wspominałyśmy na początku, po ukończeniu quizu, który wyślemy Wam drogą mailową. Także zachęcamy do sprawdzenia maila. Jeszcze raz dziękujemy i zachęcamy do obserwowania nas wszystkich jako TPWS, ale też indywidualnie. W przypadku jakichkolwiek pytań co do konferencji albo do naszych działalności, jak najbardziej zachęcamy do kontaktu i życzymy miłego weekendu i miłego wieczoru. Jest pytanie o czas na realizację quizu. Jeszcze tego nie ustalałyśmy, czy to w ogóle będzie jakieś ograniczenie czasowe. Więc wydaje mi się, że odpowiedź raczej brzmi nie, ale dziewczyny, wypowiedzcie się, jak wy sądzicie. Widzę, że
Myślę,
Klaudia
że
też machasz głową, że nie będzie raczej.
kwestia czasu nie odpada.
Tak, raczej nie chcemy wywierać żadnej presji i tak samo raczej nie spodziewajcie się złośliwych i bardzo trudnych pytań. To nie po to robimy.
I gdybyście mieli też jakieś uwagi albo chcieli się czymś podzielić, to jak najbardziej możecie do nas pisać na Instagramie, chyba będzie najwygodniej, albo na Facebooku, jeżeli macie jakieś uwagi, albo jeżeli chciałybyście cokolwiek powiedzieć, to jak najbardziej możecie się do nas odzywać. Dobra, to myślę, że możemy już oficjalnie zakończyć. Dzięki jeszcze raz wszystkim i mam nadzieję, że do zobaczenia niedługo przy okazji innych wydarzeń. Dzięki jeszcze raz za dzisiaj. Cześć.
Dzięki,
Dziękuję
pa!
bardzo. Dzięki.